So, throughout this year, I've been keeping a little spreadsheet of all the video games I've been playing. It started as a dumb title idea. 2020 in hindsight, because hindsight is 2020, and I've still been trying to make that joke work throughout this entire year, and still really haven't quite gotten the delivery right. And I thought it'd be nice to just at the end of the year look back at all the games I've played, all the time I wasted, all the little games that left an impact on me and that I hope to remember for a long time. And it kind of feels like I chose a really good year to do this. I mean, I don't really have to say it, but 2020 was an absolutely terrible year. Just all around bad. And video games were one of the few things helping me keep sane, as I'm sure it was for a lot of people out there. There were a lot of them. I played a lot of different games this year. Almost 40 different titles, according to the spreadsheet. To be honest, I wasn't exactly diligent in keeping the spreadsheet up to date. I tried my best, but there may have been one or two that slipped through here that I completely forgot about. Nevertheless, here's everything. Here's every game, new or not, that I played in 2020. Probably. I probably missed one or two. I double checked, but who knows? It's been a hell of a year. The footage is mostly stuff I recorded. If I lost the footage, then they'll just put in trailer clips or something. It's fine. Yeah, here's everything I played. They're grouped loosely by category. Enjoy. Games that didn't come out this year. Skip to 26 minutes for only this year's releases. So let's start with the games that didn't come out this year. Let's just get them out of the way. Terraria was a game that I picked up again, only for a short period of time, but it gets on this list. Everything gets on this list. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. It's amazing to me that Terraria got as many updates as it did. Relogic just kept pumping more content in. They're well past the point where they could have just called the game complete and split out some of these content updates into DLC. And you know what? I don't think very many people would actually mind having to pay a little bit more for all this extra content. But no, they decided to keep it all part of the base game. A game that came out in, 2011? That I'm talking about in 2020? It's incredible. The amount of stuff you can get for $10. It goes on sale all the time for like $5. I spun this up for a little bit with my friends to experience the Journey's End and Journey's Actual End updates. And you know what? It's still great. Game's incredible. I finally got around to building a home NAS this year, and as a side effect, I had a machine that I could just spin up a dedicated Minecraft server on. So I started a little modded server with a bunch of my friends and had a blast. Turns out it's not that hard to have fun with Minecraft in 2020. A common thread amongst a lot of these games with a lot of longevity is their modability. I mean, yeah, the game's getting updates every once in a while, official updates, but the stuff that these modders are cranking out all the time just blows all that away, just completely out of the water. I also tried out one of those fancy ray tracing shader packs, and it was neat. I don't have any footage of it, unfortunately, but yeah, it was a pretty cool novelty. I don't know if it added too much to the game, besides lowering my frame rates. It's still pretty, still very pretty. Minecraft in 2020, still very healthy, still very, very good game. I'm sure it's going to be a great game for some time to come. I'm going to put Risk of Rain 2 here, even though it technically released in 2020 with its 1.0 update. It's been in early access for a while, and it's a very complete game throughout its early access, but my list, my rules, it goes here in the didn't come out in 2020 part. But whatever. Risk of Rain 2 is an incredible game. A high energy, beautifully frenetic third-person roguelike shooter that can get absolutely insane. When you hit those magic items and get that sick run, it feels incredible, which is a very important part of any roguelike or roguelite. And as a bonus, its multiplayer is good. There aren't that many multiplayer roguelites, and even fewer that are enhanced as much by the multiplayer experience as Risk of Rain 2 is. And it seems the game's only going to get better from here on out. The Risk of Rain 2 2021 development roadmap, or as they've called it cleverly, a forecast, weather joke, has a anniversary update coming in March, which will add a bunch of new content, and a paid expansion come quarter 4. Risk of Rain 2 is an incredible game, and I'm excited to see what comes in these updates. So I played Skyrim again this year. Just like every year, it seems like. There's always a point in the year where I just get this urge to download Skyrim again, spend 10 hours picking and downloading mods, and then play it for about 10 hours before I'd say, oh, that was enough, I'm good, and I put it down. This year was a little bit different though. I had some time off of work, so I downloaded and played Skyrim for quite a bit, and turns out, game's still pretty good. Yeah, sure, the modability has really, really extended this game's life, as has its perpetual re-releases. But I don't know, there is something magic about Skyrim, isn't there? Maybe it's how the open world is presented and paced. Maybe it's just how familiar I am with it, and maybe it is the mods. Maybe it is that unique kind of Skyrim jankness that it has that I love so much. I don't know what it is. Maybe I just fell in love with Skyrim and I'm blind to the truth. But I feel like there's something that Elder Scrolls does that I don't experience in other games. Oblivion kind of scratches that itch. Skyrim definitely scratches that itch. But anything else, when I get that craving, there's just nothing else that'll do. I hope that the next Elder Scrolls game, when it comes out in the year 2050, really does scratch those same itches, so I can stop downloading Skyrim again. Battle Royale games should not be my jam. I'm not the biggest competitive FPS fan, and nothing about Battle Royales really speaks to me. Every time I play one of these Battle Royale games, I'm just kind of meh on them, but I keep playing them. And when I do pick them up and play them, I usually have an okay time. And I realize playing Apex Legends that the thing about Battle Royale games that I love so much is that I like to pick stuff up off the ground. I like to run around the map and pick up stuff off the ground. I look at the stuff. Sometimes I see the good colors, and that makes me really excited to pick up the thing. And sometimes I see like the thing that matches the thing I already picked up, which is also very cool. I am a simple man, and the picking up stuff part of Battle Royales is my favorite part. Everything else is just okay. Apex Legends did that pretty good. It made me excited to pick things up off the ground and run into the middle of the circle. That's it. That's all my thoughts on Apex Legends. I don't remember playing Counter-Strike Global Offensive this year, but apparently, according to Steam, I launched it in February, so it gets on the list. And I guess I'll talk about it a little bit. I've played about 200 hours of Counter-Strike Global Offensive, which to some people might sound like a large number, but to anyone who really plays Counter-Strike, considering how long this game's been out, that's not much at all. And I really haven't played it consistently for quite a while. And it just comes down to the game being something I would enjoy in a vacuum. Mechanically, I love everything about this game, but in reality, I enjoy it a lot less. I love the gunplay in CSGO. It is snappy, it is fun, it is interesting, Every gun feels unique and different to the other guns. The maps are designed wonderfully. It's just that when you actually sit down to play CSGO at the level that I am at, that being not good, you don't have a lot of options. You either play casual mode, which is a weird long slog with too many people that goes on for too long and ignores a lot of the fun strategic elements of CSGO, or you play competitive mode, which is full of teammates who are actively trolling you and smurfs who purposely drag games out to draws so they don't rank up very fast so they can continue to pub stomp. It's just not a good time for someone like me, which is a shame. CSGO is a great game, balanced very well in the competitive sense. It's just not a great time for someone like me. Maybe I expect too little from Pokemon. The discussion around Pokemon Sword and Shield has made me realize that I don't enjoy Pokemon in the same manner that a lot of people enjoy Pokemon. I just want to run around a world, look at some cool scenery, and catch some dudes. And I want to fight those dudes against a computer. That's it. Seeing the new dudes that they had every time, that's cool. And seeing how the old dudes, they get new shapes for the old dudes, that's cool too. And in that, Pokemon Shield, the Armor Isle DLC and the Crown Tundra DLC did fine. Plenty of dudes. Plenty of cool dudes. Galar and Slowbro is a Mega Man technically, so that already gets a bonus rating for me. I don't know. Game seems fine to me. There's a lot of negativity surrounding Pokemon, and I don't get it. I kind of get it. I can kind of see why some people would be upset, but I don't really get it. As someone who has played too much League of Legends, let me say this unequivocally. Do not play League of Legends. Riot doesn't let you see how long you've spent on League of Legends, and I'm fairly certain that is by design. There's a third-party tool online which estimates my playtime at around 800 and something hours, which is, sounds about right, feels about right. And someone unfamiliar with League of Legends might listen and say, wow, that's a lot of time. You must be pretty good. No, I am bad. I'm deeply mediocre at best. I only keep playing League of Legends because Riot Games have created the processed snack food equivalent of a video game. It is terrible for me. Nearly every time after I play a game of League of Legends, I feel terrible. But I can't stop playing because it is the perfect combination of action and strategy and spicy and cheesy and crunchy. And it's divided up into convenient 35-minute portions, so you're never full after one. And once you've eaten two, you might as well finish the whole box and have 3 or 4, And so I just really keep coming back to it because it has dug its chemical addiction hooks into my brain. Riot Games have released statistics that say that the average League of Legends player has 832 hours of playtime. That is 35 days straight. I cannot imagine a new player trying to get into this game. There's too much to learn. Like a wealth of knowledge that you are expected to know just jumping in. And you'll start off, you'll be in low rank. That low rank place is not full of new players. It's full of old players who are very angry and bad. It's full of people who don't like skill-based matchmaking and only winning half the time, so they make new accounts so they can play against people at lower ranks. It's full of people who got banned by Riot, so they had to make a new account so they can once again participate in the most toxic gaming community on the face of the earth. Do not play League of Legends. I have escaped for now. I haven't played since the new items update, the new preseason. That's temporary. I know I'm going to be dragged back into this mess in due time. In contrast to League of Legends, TFT is actually a good video game. TFT is quick to pick up, has a surprising amount of depth, and nobody talks in the chat. It's beautiful. It's perfect. For a game that's only been out for like a year and a half, TFT has changed quite a bit. Every new set brings a whole new slew of mechanics to master, and the balance patches within each set really can mix things up quite a bit. When TFT first launched, I was kind of worried it would get a little stale, but Riot seems aware of this and are constantly trying to keep things fresh. And the mobile version of the game works fine. I typically don't enjoy playing games on my phone, but something about TFT just kind of works for me. It's great for a bus commute or just lying down in bed and playing something. With how much TFT has changed in its relatively short lifespan, I'm excited to see where it goes next. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is a video game that I am very bad at, but it's a game I do enjoy playing every once in a while, and that I do respect, despite its shortcomings. As a love letter to video games, Super Smash Bros. Is monumental. With the ubiquity of Smash, it's kind of easy to forget how just absolutely insane it is that there are so many different IPs represented, even if we do have 2 Final Fantasy VII characters now. And we still got 3 characters left in Fighter Pass 2. I just kind of wish that this game was like easier to play online. Every time Nintendo does online, it's just a nightmare. An absolute disaster garbage fire. The short amount of time I spent trying to find rando matches online was just terrible, so I just kind of stopped doing that. And battle arenas being the only way you can play with your friends online is just kind of terrible too. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that the game doesn't let you do in those. And not to mention the battle arenas themselves are just a terrible way of organizing matches. But outside of all this, I still do think that this game's iconic. I mean, every character reveal is just like a mini cultural event. Like I said, we still got 3 characters left in Fighter Pass 2, so I'm sure we're all excited to see who those are going to be. If I do a games I've played list every year, including the games that didn't come out that year, XCOM 2 is going to be on those lists every year for a long time, until maybe XCOM 3 comes out probably. I am well and truly hooked into this game. I uploaded a lot of XCOM videos to my channel. Being a computer science student who was also working in the middle of this whole year didn't leave a lot of room for good editing, so slicing up a XCOM session into 3 videos was something very easy to do. And doing commentary over XCOM live, I mean, that's pretty much how I play XCOM anyways. You know, instead of just mumbling to myself of the things I'm going to do, I just say it out loud into a microphone. And XCOM 2 is definitely a game that I would be playing anyways. It's just a great strategy game. I love Enemy Within too, so I guess that helps a lot. Oh, and it's incredibly moddable. The modding community for this game is absolutely insane. Like, XCOM 2 with the War of the Chosen DLC is already a pretty great experience. But open up the Steam Workshop and you can completely change this game thanks to the countless hours of work with some very, very dedicated modders. I just want to recommend XCOM 2 to everyone. Even people, if you're not great at strategy games, just play on easy. The game's fine. Like, people, oh man, XCOM is so hard, you missed the 99% shot, that's XCOM baby. Yeah, that's true, and if you like that, that's great. I like that too. But if you just want to experience this game and you're not great at games, just play on easy. It's fine. Use the command console if you want to. If you're willing to like install mods and dig into the config files, this game is incredibly customizable. You can make it the experience you want out of a strategy game. I guarantee it. It might take a little bit of work, but it is possible. I just checked my Steam playtime for XCOM 2, and it says I have 1,629 hours. Game's great. Games are great. Game's amazing. Magic the Gathering is the greatest trading card game of all time, and I wish Magic the Gathering Arena was a slightly better way to play it. I used to play Magic a lot in high school, the paper version of Magic the Gathering, And earlier this year, I really wanted to get back into it, right when the pandemic hit. Just my luck. I already had Magic the Gathering Arena installed on my computer from when I played it during the beta, so I hopped in, bought some booster packs, and you know what? I had a blast. Arena has its advantages. You can always find a match, and it's a real simple and easy way to play Magic the Gathering. But the more I play it, the more I notice its flaws and limitations. Every update just seems slightly buggier than the last. The monetization, compared to other ways you can play Magic the Gathering, is terrible. Grinding out your daily and weekly missions is not fun, and you don't get much if you don't buy the pass. If you want to play a specific deck in Arena, you're going to have to open booster packs, which you earn very slowly if you're not paying for them, and hope you get lucky, or use wild cards, which you earn very slowly, even if you're opening booster packs. And you're going to end up with a lot of common and uncommon wild cards, which have no way of getting you the rares and mythic rares that you're going to need to play most decks. If you already have a full playset of a card and Wizards of the Coast decides to reprint that card in the next set, the boosters you open might get you more copies of that card, which get you no additional benefit other than getting to pick new art, assuming the reprint even has new art. In Paper Magic, if you wanted to play a fun, less than competitive deck, but still have it be focused, you could just buy singles and probably put it together for pretty darn cheap. But in Arena, those junk rares are going to cost you the same amount of wild cards that a competitive rare is going to cost you. And you're going to just be out of rare wild cards and have like 300 uncommon wild cards that you can't do anything with. If Arena just let me convert wild cards from one tier to another tier, or let me dust the cards I'm not going to be playing with like you can in Hearthstone, even if the conversion rate isn't good, it'd be a huge improvement over what Arena is currently. There's another way to play Magic the Gathering online, and that's Magic the Gathering Online. And the only reason I haven't picked it up is because it's kind of intimidating looking. Maybe 2021's the year I finally break down and tackle that beast. I do enjoy a good visual novel. I don't play them all that often, less than I'd like to. But every once in a while, one just kind of strikes me and I need to play it. And Necrobarista was one of those. The story revolves around a cafe at the crossroads between life and death, the last stop before departing on to the afterlife. It's that premise combined with this game's striking visual style that got me to click Add to Cart on Steam. And I'm glad I did. Necrobarista is a story about the process of letting go, filled with a cast of memorable characters and some absolutely wonderful writing. If you're looking for a short, linear visual novel, and you haven't already, check out Necrobarista. How do I even describe Caves of Good? Cud? I'm not even sure how to pronounce this game. Caves of Qud Cud is a traditional roguelike with a procedurally generated open world and lore? That feels insufficient. One method of creating interesting gameplay is to design systems, allow them to interact in interesting ways, and see what type of experience emerges from them. And Caves of Qud is definitely that type of game. There's a faction system, a fluids system. At the beginning of each run, you choose whether your character has mutations or cybernetics. There's crafting, there's followers, there's disease, there's procedurally generated lore that changes with every run. The amount of systems, nay, the sheer amount of stuff in this game is kind of absurd. This game can be intimidating. I certainly struggled with it for the first 10 hours I've played it. Lots of the stuff in this game is abstruse in the most delightful way for me. But now that I've sunk 125 hours into this game with the wiki open in my second monitor, I'm really starting to enjoy everything that this game has to offer. Disco Elysium was one of those games that I knew I would love, but I just kind of put off for a while. And I regret putting it off for as long as I did. Everyone who I heard talk about this game was calling it revolutionary, and it deserves every bit of praise that it gets. Disco Elysium is a dialogue-driven RPG that offers you an incredible amount of choice in a beautiful, lovingly rendered world filled with masterfully crafted characters and incredible writing. This game is so good that the second I picked it up, I couldn't put it down until I finished it. I played this game start to finish in one 15-hour-long session, and I loved every single second of it. And with the definitive edition of the game coming out as a free upgrade in March, I'm excited to play this game all over again. I am certain that the stuff that I loved in my first playthrough is only a tiny fraction of what is actually in this game. For its incredible storytelling, beautiful style, and unique gameplay, Disco Elysium wins my I Wish I Played You Sooner award. Alright, and that's all the games that didn't come out this year, and it only took me like 26 minutes. Let's move on to the games that came out this year. Let's start out with some remasters? Remakes? I think the ones I played this year tend more towards remasters. That's what I'll call them, remasters. I played 3 of them this year, and I think they show very different approaches to releasing a game again on a newer system. Let's start with Rune Factory 4 Special. I'm a big fan of the Rune Factory series. It's a very fun, unique combination of farming sim, village life relationship sim, and RPG dungeon crawler, which nowadays I guess isn't all that unique anymore. There are few other games, especially indies, who have tried the formula, and it's a good formula. The Rune Factory series is about daily routine and preparation. Every day you get up, water your crops, talk to all the villagers, building up relationships and gathering supplies to help you take on a dungeon. And Rune Factory 4 Special does all this just fine. My only issue with this game, and it's a fairly significant one, is that despite being on Nintendo Switch, you can really tell that this game is a remastered 3DS game. It's very clear that this game was designed to be enjoyed on a much smaller screen. UI elements are large and awkward, quality of many of the visual assets doesn't really hold up at this higher resolution, and the game generally just feels kinda cramped all the time. I'm sure this game works fine with the 2 smaller screens of the 3DS, but it kind of falls apart on Nintendo Switch, especially considering that I typically play my Nintendo Switch docked and through a monitor. Hopefully when Rune Factory 5 launches, it can take better advantage of the platform. I played SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom on the original Xbox as a kid, which made playing SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated a weird experience for me. Purple Ant Studios' version of the game is technically a remake, and from what I understand was completely rebuilt from the ground up for Unreal Engine 4. But aside from the visuals, Rehydrated is identical to the original. Uncannily so. Playing a game that I had such fond memories of from childhood, but seeing it wrapped up in this shiny interpretation of the original art style was an odd experience to say the least. It's kind of like walking down a familiar road, but every building has gotten a new coat of paint. Things are the same. Everything is the same. All the buildings are where they should be. They're just shinier. They're cleaner. You know the way around. Things are a little bit, I don't know if I want to call it off, because the visual style isn't a complete departure from the original. They're grounded in similar elements. They just really went all out with the color and the full capabilities of Unreal Engine 4 for this one. I'm sure that to the younger generation of new SpongeBob fans out there, this is a fantastic game, and the original looks terrible in comparison. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is another game that I have fond memories of, and Mystery Dungeon DX is a pretty faithful remaster. There are some changes from the original, mostly quality of life changes like autosave and auto mode, which cuts down on some of the tedium of exploring a dungeon, but there are some mechanical differences too. Being defeated in a mystery dungeon now lets you continue with the next Pokemon in your party, and the addition of Mega Evolution spices things up too. Visually, at first I wasn't a fan of the new art style. I wasn't really liking the 3D models, and the watercolor pencil shaded aesthetic wasn't really doing anything for me, but I don't know, I can't explain it. It just kind of grew on me, I guess. I don't know. I guess I started to find it charming. All in all, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon DX is a fine modernization and remaster of an already solid game. But you know what would be better than a remaster of an old Mystery Dungeon game? How about a new Mystery Dungeon game? Nintendo? How about that? Huh? Well, it's been 5 years since Super Mystery Dungeon. I mean, I think it's about time that, I mean, you could launch a new one. I think people would like that. Please. Did I say 3 remakes and remasters I played this year? I meant 4. I forgot about this one. Mega Man Battle Network Overclocked is a fan project looking to remake the first Mega Man Battle Network game. So far, the release demo goes through the game's first scenario, the Fireman scenario. And as far as fan remakes go, hey, it's pretty good. The game is rendered in 3D instead of the sprite-based 2D of the original. And that adds quite a bit, like smooth transitions between overworld and battle, and animated 3D portraits for dialogue. Something about it does feel a little off compared to the original, but maybe that's just my nostalgia-addled brain talking. The real reason I put this on the list is because I just want to talk about Mega Man Battle Network, which is something I want to do a lot. In a world full of deck-building indie games, Mega Man Battle Network seems more relevant than ever. Or maybe that's just my dumb brain trying to find a reason that a Mega Man Battle Network game should exist. It's just that they're really good games, but Capcom just kind of wants to sleep on them. I don't know. Battle Network 6 was a true and great ending for the series, I guess. Star Force was good too. I would love a new Star Force game. Those are good games. I'm reaching. Like Mega Man 11 happened, maybe there is some hope. You know? 2021 is Mega Man Battle Network's 20th anniversary. And I know that all that really means is they're going to release a bunch of merch that I'm going to buy all of. But if they just announce something in a game, it doesn't have to be a new game. You could just release I don't know, like a particularly fancy remaster. I'd love that too. I mean, I know I'm not the only person who misses Mega Man Battle Network as much as I do. There's a whole bunch of like Mega Man Battle Network fan games in the works right now. There are a bunch of indie games that are inspired by this game's mechanics. I miss Mega Man. I miss Mega Man Battle Network. Mega Man.exe. Come on. Come on, Capcom. Come on! Capcom! Temtem was a game that I backed on Kickstarter, completely forgot I backed on Kickstarter, and when it came out I was like, that looks familiar, and then I downloaded it and it's like, yep, I backed this on Kickstarter. Temtem is a online Pokemon MMO thing. I haven't played it all since the small amount I played during its initial release, but the time I spent with the game left me with a mostly positive impression. The monster designs are good, the game looks and sounds good, and the combat has a surprising amount of depth to it. What more could you ask from a monster taming game? The stuff I played was pretty early on in Temtem's lifespan, and I'm sure it's gotten plenty of updates since then. It's probably worth a revisit. I'll probably completely forget. Fight Crab is a physics-enhanced crustacean combat game. I don't know how to describe it beyond that. You play as a crustacean. You can unlock other kinds of crustaceans and weapons. You can arm your crustacean with a gun, sword, a rocket engine, all sorts of different things. Fight Crab is a very silly game, but it actually has a little bit of strategic depth to it in terms of combat. Your claws can be used to block, punch, and grab and pinch and equip weapons, and all of those have their merits and demerits that need to be balanced if you want to be successful in this game. Although not an incredible game, I did enjoy my time with Fight Crab, mostly because I could tell how much fun the dev had putting together some of these very silly scenarios. Unrailed. Now here's a game. Unrailed is a cooperative little party game where your goal is to help a little train go where it's going. Only catch is, you gotta build the rail as the train is traveling. This frantic little party game is incredible. There's just so many little things that you have to manage. Gathering resources for rails, making sure that the rails are constantly being built, making sure that the rails are being placed in front of the train, making sure that you don't cut yourself off from resources, making sure you clear a path for the train, making sure the train constantly has water, and you're constantly trying to coordinate these things between you and your friends. The game is mechanically pretty simple, but has a pretty incredible amount of depth to it. For its clever multiplayer-focused design and inspiring quite a few heated exchanges between me and my friends, Unrailed gets my "How is this my fault?" award. I'm pretty fortunate to have my most negative gaming experiences this year be just kind of meh experiences. And Contagion 2029 is one of those meh experiences. I play a lot of these XCOM-like games, including the studio's previous game, Mutant Year Zero, and I found that game to be okay. It had some interesting ideas, but certainly had a lot of room for improvement. So when the Bearded Ladies announced and then very quickly released another game, Corruption 2029, I was intrigued to say the least. There was a very quick turnaround between these two games, but I was hoping that some of the lessons learned from Mutant Year Zero would make their way into their next effort. But instead what I got was kind of more of the same. Corruption 2029 doesn't really do much different at all from Mutant Year Zero, and has just kind of a less interesting, more generic, near-future cyber soldiers kind of aesthetic. I wanted a little bit more from this game, but at least it was only mediocre. I didn't play a lot of Valorant, but everything gets on the list. If CSGO gets on the list, so does Valorant. And Valorant plays things pretty similarly to CSGO, from the little I've played of it. Maybe it gets more interesting at higher levels of play, or as you sink more time into it, but it feels very CSGO. It doesn't help that only a few of my friends were interested in playing it. Not enough to consistently get a group of 5 or even have someone occasionally trying to drag me into a game. And I can't say I blame him. Nothing about Valorant was unique enough or interesting enough to make me play it more than what I already had. And when you consider that I would have to install Riot Vanguard again and just have all that going on in the background, it's not worth the system tray icon. Other Side is another XCOM-like, this one with some roguelite elements to it. In Other Side, you command a squad of daughters, fragments of the greatest warrior who ever lived, in a combat against an otherworldly horror known as suffering. This combat takes the form of a series of stages. Each stage you must complete a number of missions until you unlock the ability to face the boss. After you defeat the boss, you move on to the next stage, which increases the difficulty of the monsters you face, until you fight this stage's boss, rinse and repeat until you complete the game. Losing against the boss sends you back to the beginning to start all over again. Now, Other Side does have some pretty cool ideas. Injured daughters can only be healed by sacrificing a different daughter. Doing so will also give the healed daughter some stat boosts, but reduces the total amount of units you have. The action point system, combined with an order-based turn system, makes for some very interesting strategic choices. You can take as many actions as you have action points for, but ending your turn with more than half your action points remaining means your daughter will act again sooner in the queue. Deciding whether or not you should exert your daughters to deal with problems now, or have them act again sooner to deal with problems later, makes for some very interesting strategic gameplay. My only issue with this game is it fails as a roguelike. There's simply just not enough variety to justify playing this game over and over again. There's very little enemy variety. You're facing the same ones over and over again. And the ones in later stages are simply just beefed up versions of the ones you fought in earlier stages. On the player side, the daughters don't change much between each run either. Yes, daughters can get randomly assigned traits as they develop, but these traits typically just take the form of a flat stat boost and don't really change how the daughter plays at all. Mission variety and map variety is also severely lacking. There are unlockables that let you skip stages that you've already completed, but the game still feels more repetitive than entertaining. Variety is such an important part of the roguelike or roguelite experience. It's what makes replaying these games worthwhile. Other Side doesn't have any of this variety, but still wants to be a roguelite. There have been updates to this game since I've played it, but somehow I doubt that they add enough to this game to elevate it beyond mediocre in my eyes. Spellbreak was okay. Developed by some studio called Proletariat. Spellbreak was another battle royale, really. Sure, there's like an element of verticality because like people are super jumping all the time, and most of the damage is in like big AoEs and not like gun. But I don't think these changes made it all that different from any other battle royale. Moment to moment, it still just plays like a typical battle royale game. You still get to run around and pick stuff up off the ground, which is a plus for me. But the simplified loot, although makes the game easier to pick up, makes picking things up off the ground less interesting to me. I'm sure this game is definitely somebody's jam. And I had a little bit of fun with it, but it definitely isn't my jam. Ghost of Tsushima. Yeah, it goes in the mess section. Ghost of Tsushima was so close to being an amazing game for me. It has beautiful moments, a somewhat predictable but still interesting story. It handles myth and legend in a fairly interesting way. It handles its themes of loss and trauma in a fairly good way. Its characters are interesting. It has some very cool high moments in combats, like the duels with various characters. But ultimately, this game for me is just held back by all that AAA open world nonsense that I am so tired of. There are too many farms to be liberated, too many Mongol encampments to be conquered, endless shrines to just jump around and do their platforming for the little stat boost talisman. The combat, although it introduces a fairly interesting stance system, boils down to basically any other AAA melee combat, except you have to be in the right stance to be effective against certain enemies. The thing I dislike about AAA games the most is that they are unwilling to deviate from the formula too much. This is the games themselves. AAA development has its own mess of problems. The large amount of money riding on AAA games means that studios are unwilling to deviate from established formulas too much. And Ghost of Tsushima suffers from this a lot. Despite its unique setting, despite its new characters, I was overwhelmed with the feeling that I've played this game before, and that I didn't really want to play it again. Alright, enough criticizing games. Time to criticize me. This is the list of shame. This is a list of every game that I've purchased this year, but did not play. I will have to justify, as best as I can, the purchase of each game. Games acquired in a bundle or acquired for free do not count. Let us begin. Star Renegades. This is a roguelite, turn-based RPG thing. I mean, this is totally my jam. I'm totally going to love it when I do play it. Endless Space 2. This is a huge, big, grand strategy game. You can't expect me to just hop into that at any point. Anytime. I need to prepare myself. Baldur's Gate 3. It's just early access right now. I'm going to play it eventually. I mean, it's Baldur's Gate. It's Larian. Come on. I'm going to play that. For the King. I was tricked into buying this one. A friend said he'd play with me and then did not. Wanba Warriors. Same deal, same friend. Tricked me into buying it. Among Us. I thought I had friends that would play this game with me. Turns out I do not. Sonic Mania. And I'm going to go ahead and throw Sonic Generations here too. They were both super cheap during the Sega sale. Or something like that. I don't remember. They were really cheap. I'm almost certain they were very cheap during some sort of sale. A Bright Memory. This game looks ridiculous. And I'm supporting an independent developer? Griftlands. It's a deck building. It's a deck building game. It's a deck building game in a cool, kind of rough, gritty sci-fi universe. I'm totally gonna enjoy that. I'm going to totally play that. Dead Cells. It's a roguelite. With great combat. People say this game's great. I'm totally going to enjoy that when I totally play it. 100%. One Step from Eden. This game has combat inspired by Mega Man Battle Network. That's all the justification I need. Mighty Gunvolt Burst. It's a Mega Man I like Mega Man. I'm totally gonna enjoy that when I do play it. Record of Lodos War Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth. Okay. Oh. I heard exactly one person say this game was a good Metroidvania. The game's title was so funny. It's so long. Record of Lodos War Deedlit in Wonder. I had to. Come on. I had to. All right. Just a few more games and I can get to the stuff that I really liked this year. Paper Mario: The Origami King. Who, boy, loves just saying the title. I ruined a good chunk of this game for myself by playing that stupid game where I reset the... there's a video on my channel somewhere. Just know that I played the start to this game a whole lot. A whole lot. But once I got past that, this Paper Mario game was an alright experience. It has a great sense of humor, some very funny, surprisingly clever writing. It's just that the puzzle battle system just wasn't doing it for me. I like a puzzle game, but the puzzle battles just started to quickly feel like a chore that I had to do to keep reading the funny dialogue. Nothing about them felt particularly clever to me or really made me want to do them at all. The Origami King is a fine game, just not particularly great for me, and definitely not one of my favorite Paper Mario games. Genshin Impact. Oh boy, what a fascinating game. A gacha-funded action RPG with Breath of the Wild inspired elements. This is the largest scale and budget gacha game, I'm fairly certain, right? And from what I understand, it's been incredibly successful in making back its development budget very, very quickly. I'm sure in future we will see other large-scale efforts funded by the generous wellspring that is gacha. And when we get those, we're going to point back at Genshin Impact and say, yeah, that's the game that really started that trend, isn't it? Gameplay-wise, I found this game just fine. Combat was alright, the elemental system was interesting, the characters felt different enough from each other to justify their existence. I just personally needed to stop playing this game. You see, I had reached a point where I felt that I had played enough to justify indulging in some microtransactions. So I spent $60 and all my free-to-play earned currency to roll for Venti. I in fact did not acquire Venti, but I did acquire this edge lady like 6 times, and Jean. It was there that I knew that I had reached a crossroads. I could either proceed down the path of no self-control, in which I would continue to play this game, and just every once in a while say, oh hey, I could justify some microtransactions here. $5 a week ain't that bad. Let's it's the weekend. Let's just drop $20 on some rolls. It's fine. It's fine. And then it wouldn't be fine, because over the course of the year, I'd spend something like $1,000 something. Or I could take the path of restraint, stop playing the game, and admire the characters from afar. And that is what I chose to do, and my wallet thanks me. But only briefly, because I will be destroying it with other needless purchases. Just not with gacha rolls. User is an interesting game because I think the worst part about it is that it's a video game. Fuser is Harmonix's video gamification of Drop Mix, a physical board game that they worked on previously. The premise is the same in both of them. You and a friend, if you play the multiplayer, take bits and pieces of various songs, drop them onto the board, and see how they sound. All the hard work is done for you. The game automatically matches the tempos and keys, so you just gotta put together the pieces that you think will sound good. And Fuser is really good at this. At its core, it's an amazing little music tool that allows for a lot of creativity, a lot of fun discovery, and a lot of great moments. The unfortunate bit is everything that makes this a video game and not a fun music toy. In campaign mode and the versus mode, the game has to score you somehow, and it does this by asking you to fulfill certain requests as they come up. This turns Fuser into a multitasking management game. Unfortunately, playing this multitasking management game optimally makes your mix sound terrible. Fuser as a game and Fuser as a cool music toy are directly opposed to each other. Another unfortunate bit is this game's business model. And I kind of understand why the business model is this way. I mean, this game has to deal with the music industry. Ugh. The game is a $60 purchase. If you wanted all the launch DLC, you can get a nice bundle called the User VIP version for $100. At the moment, buying all the DLC separately would cost you $201.45, and buying a song individually runs you $2 a pop. And I just don't know if there are people who would look at that and say, you know what, I just want to spend money on this game, especially nowadays. Yeah, I spent $2 on Soulja Boy's Crank That, and $2 on Evanescence Bring Me to Life, but that's it. That's it. It's just the two most cursed pieces of music there. That's it. As it stands, Fuser is a pretty neat little music toy that can be used for fun mixes or just cursed nonsense. I have serious concerns about its longevity considering its business model, but hey, we'll see. Alright, and let's begin the pretty good list. Yeah, that's right, Cyberpunk 2077 makes the pretty good list, despite everything. Yes, this game is a buggy mess. Yes, its production and marketing was an absolute nightmare. And yes, there are many valid criticisms to be levered against this game, most of which I agree with. But my experience with this game goes solidly into the pretty good category. I played on PC and have a fairly decent gaming rig, so its poor optimization wasn't too bad of an issue for me. The bugs I ran into were typically the funny kind and not the game-breaking kind. Characters T-posing, AI behaving strangely, stuff like that. The more frustrating bugs I ran into were infrequent enough to not really harm my overall enjoyment of the game. Although Cyberpunk 2077's story is not particularly inspired, it serves as a sufficient backdrop for its characters, who are more often than not well written and memorable. Combat is never particularly challenging, even on the harder difficulties. I think a lot of that is owing to the game's poor AI, but it is entertaining enough to keep me playing. I guess what I'm trying to say about Cyberpunk is that everything about the game is at least alright, meaning that it really doesn't get in the way of the game's good stuff. And there is good stuff in this game. Night City is one of the most incredible environments I've ever experienced in a video game. Its sense of scale and incredible detail really sells the illusion that Night City is a place, and not just a level in a video game. A lot of the side stories in this game are actually decent stories, which is a little surprising considering how little tact Cyberpunk 2077 can seem to have at times. In all, I think there is a good game here. Yes, this game has a lot of problems, and some of those problems can't be fixed with patches and updates. But hopefully, with some time, Cyberpunk 2077 can be greatly improved. XCOM Chimera Squad was one of my favorite little surprises this year. This game came out of absolutely nowhere, and I'm really glad that it exists, both because it's a good game and for what it means for the XCOM series. As a game, Chimera Squad is a smaller scale XCOM experience with some interesting ideas. The shift to a queue-based turn order completely changes how the game is played. The breach phase, although underexplored in my opinion, adds another layer of strategy to the game. And the change to static, named, and voiced characters rather than the randomly generated soldiers that you normally get lent this game a lot of personality and really helped paint the picture of a post-Alien Invasion world. But what Chimera Squad means for the XCOM series is that Firaxis is willing to experiment with the XCOM formula and IP. Even if that takes the form of small games like Chimera Squad, I am excited to see what comes next for XCOM. There are a lot of deck-building roguelites out there. A lot of them. And Monster Train is certainly one of the better ones. Monster Train's little twist is that it's like a turn-based tower defense, almost. You play as a coalition of denizens of hell attempting to get this train to the center of hell so you can rekindle the fires of hell. Along the way, angels will try to stop you by entering your train, moving up to the top of it, and then attacking the last ember of the fires of hell. Or something like that. There is a lot of lore in this game, and I am only vaguely familiar with it. What I am familiar with is the absolute rush you get when you hit that magic run in this game. Numbers scale really big in this game. They start small. but very quickly get out of hand. And it can kind of be difficult to wrap your brain around all of that sometimes. The flip side of that, though, is that when you start doing the big numbers, it feels really good to do the big numbers. And it's necessary to do the big numbers if you want to complete a run. Some of the later bosses will absolutely floor you if you haven't hit the tools you need to do the damage. Every time you beat the game, you unlock a new difficulty level, which really ramps up the challenge. Monster Train is another great deck-building roguelite, and I'm glad it's seen some success. Gunfire Reborn is a neat little multiplayer first-person shooter roguelite in early access right now, available for just like $12. And for the $12 price, and considering it's in early access, there's a surprising amount here. There are a lot of different little systems here that interact in very interesting ways. At the start of each run, you pick a hero. When I played, there were 3 heroes to pick from, each one significantly different to the others. As you clear stages, you unlock randomized traits, which are unique to the hero that you are playing. There is a fair amount of gun variety, and every gun has randomized stats and modifiers attached to it, and occult scrolls, which drop as loot, can completely change the way your character plays for the rest of the run. There's plenty of variety here, and each run is short enough that it's easy to grab a couple of friends and do a couple of runs. If you're looking for a multiplayer, quick pick-up-and-play first-person shooter, you could do a whole lot worse than Gunfire Reborn. Hard Space Shipbreaker is definitely one of the more unique video gaming experiences I've had this year. Hard Space set out to be a game about taking apart spaceships piece by piece, methodically, so you don't blow anything up, and it executes on this novel concept extremely well. Tearing apart ships in Hard Space is tense, but also somehow relaxing. You're bouncing between moments of tension, like hoping a cut goes well, or rushing to unplug a reactor after you unplug its coolant, and the immediate release of that tension in the moments afterwards. The only things I wanted more from this game were bigger ships, more ship variety, maybe a new tool or two, and I think the updates since I've played this game have added a lot of that. I'm definitely going to dive into this game again soon. Hard Space Shipbreaker is an incredible experience, and I'm sure a lot of people are looking for a game like this. Would you look at that? EA did it. It's been so long since they've published a game that I actually enjoyed. Well, I can't even remember the last time. Star Wars Squadrons was exactly what I needed it to be. A tight, focused little spaceship dogfighter, and an okay Star Wars story to boot. Wonderful. And it had VR support, which really made this game an incredibly immersive experience. I put on the headset and I'm not playing Star Wars Squadrons anymore. I am in the cockpit of a TIE fighter. I am in the cockpit of an X-Wing. It is wonderful. Every ship's modeled interior is beautiful. Flying only with the information on the instruments is so much fun. I do not envy people who get VR motion sick. I don't understand how this game exists. Was the PR for other EA Star Wars efforts that bad that they had to make this thing? Not only is it a spaceship fighter, which is like an already narrow segment of the market, but they designed this game with VR in mind, which is like 1.7% of the PC gamer population or something like that. Like, sure, this game was smaller budget than a lot of other EA efforts, but still, it is wild to me that this game exists. I would love to see more games like this. I doubt we will. They did add like a content update to this game, but that seems more like a wait, people like the non-microtransaction game? I guess we should do something for them, and less like a commitment to long-term updates. But in any case, for what we have right now, Star Wars Squadrons is a great game. Alright, we are in the final stretch now. These last few games are the games that I loved. Games that I will look back on and remember fondly for years to come. Starting with Half-Life Alyx. VR is still widely inaccessible for a majority of gamers out there, which is why I'm thankful that there are developers out there willing to explore this space even if it isn't super profitable. Not that Valve can't afford to just sink money wherever they want to. A lot of people talk about VR as if it's just waiting for that one killer app, and that'll be good enough for everyone to just buy a VR headset and a gaming PC right then and there. But I don't think it's that simple, especially with a developing technology like VR. There are lessons to be learned here, design considerations to be made, both in hardware and software. I feel that this space needs to be explored more and the bar to entry lowered a little bit before VR can really become something that the average household has. And as an exploration of VR, Half-Life Alyx is pretty incredible. Take the gunplay for example. Reloading in Half-Life Alyx isn't something that happens automatically. You have to do the actions yourself. For example, reloading the pistol requires you to drop the old magazine, pull a new one out from your bag, slot in the magazine, and then cock the gun again. Failure to do any of these steps will result in a nice satisfying clicking sound when you pull the trigger. And while reloading a gun this way in VR just makes a lot of sense, the game is also designed around it in a very clever way. Early on, reloading while a zombie is shambling towards you or a head crab is leaping around is a tense and very engaging experience. Enemies can appear suddenly in Half-Life Alyx, meaning you will always want to be reloaded. However, ammo can be scarce, and dropping a magazine while there's still rounds in it usually means you lose those rounds. This leads the player to reload in combat often, really upping the tension of a lot of these encounters. As you progress and naturally get better at reloading, the game throws more enemies at you. A lot of the unlockable gun upgrades relieve some of that reloading pressure, but never quite gets rid of all of it. Some people out there have faulted this game for its lack of melee combat, especially considering it's descended from those crowbar video games. But I think that a mission actually improves the game quite a bit. Being helpless after messing up a reload, or feeling that approaching danger as you start to run out of ammo, I think it's moments like that make this game so incredible. Basically, all Monster Hunter World Iceborne had to do to get on this list was be more Monster Hunter. It didn't even really need to do that. It just needed to be an excuse for me to play more Monster Hunter, and basically, it was. Monster Hunter World is a perfection of a winning formula. Hunting cool big monsters and then making armor out of their body parts, great. Everything else, like the seamless maps and the little changes to make the game feel smoother and faster, all of those are just bonuses. I've already pre-ordered Monster Hunter Rise for Nintendo Switch. The Capcom leak says it's coming out for PC too. I'm going to buy it then again too. I have a problem, okay? Animal Crossing New Horizons was already an incredibly anticipated title for me. I'm a big Animal Crossing fan. The game had been delayed a couple of times. I was waiting for something else to do on my Nintendo Switch. But the fact that this game landed right at the start of the pandemic gave it a much wider impact. For many, I'm sure Animal Crossing was a wonderful escape from the harsh realities of this year. Or perhaps it was a way for them to connect with friends or go outside when these things were otherwise impossible. The number of people who have been touched by this game must be incredible. I've seen so many people who have never played a video game before really just fall in love with Animal Crossing. The amount of creativity that players of this game put forth into the world is absolutely amazing. For me, Animal Crossing was an incredible amount of positivity in an otherwise negative space. It was an injection of goals when I was otherwise listless. It was a daily routine of relaxation in a year where I needed that the most. I do wish that this game could have just been even slightly better online. Nintendo once again dropping the ball on an otherwise incredible product with just absolutely asinine online multiplayer. It is a testament to the quality of the rest of this game that anyone put up with the multiplayer at all. For me, Animal Crossing New Horizons will forever be linked in my brain to this pandemic. Not a reminder of the misery of this time, but as a light in an otherwise lightless time for me. And rounding out the list is the latest triumph from Supergiant Games, Hades. Now this list isn't in order of ranking. Hades isn't like the number one game or anything. But you know what? There is a reason it's at the end of the list. Everything Hades sets out to do, it does very well. At its core, Hades is a great roguelite with fantastic combat and a gorgeous visual style. But what I think is most brilliant about this game is that it keeps giving you reasons to play, even outside of the usual roguelike reasons to play a game over and over again. The game's story, character relationships, new gameplay, and cosmetic unlockables, all of these things are progressed one run at a time. I've done just over 150 runs, and I'm still running into new dialogue. Roguelites typically rely on procedurally generated content and interacting systems to create a reason for players to keep playing the game. Hades does this too, but it also has a wealth of handcrafted content in the form of its main and side storylines. Every other time I finished a Supergiant game, there's always this period of time afterwards where I just kind of get sad and mopey that it's over and then listen to the soundtrack on YouTube on repeat and think about, man, that was a great game. I'm never going to experience that for the first time ever again. With Hades, I haven't had that period because I can just do another run whenever, and there's always a reason for me to do another run. I could go on all day about how incredible Hades is, but really, this is just what Supergiant Games does. Bastion, Transistor, Pyre, yes, even Pyre. All of these are incredible games. I'm convinced at this point, Supergiant Games, you're an amazing studio. I'm just going to buy everything that you make forever. So yeah, Hades gets my you did it again award. You absolutely did it again, Supergiant Games. Amazing. And that's every game I played in 2020. You know, for a year that was just really terrible, just unredeemably bad. At least the games were okay. Here's hoping that 2021 is a little bit better. I mean, at least we have some games to look forward to. Humankind looks like a fresh take on Civ. Rune Factory 5, you know, if you're into that kind of thing. Deathloop from Arcane. They always do good stuff. Halo Infinite and Overwatch 2. I'm not particularly excited about these games, but their releases are sure to be interesting, to say the least. Back 4 Blood just looks like shiny Left 4 Dead, and I'm all for it. New Monster Hunter Rise coming out. Endless Dungeon. If you haven't played Dungeon of the Endless, go play that. It's a great game. Endless Dungeon just looks like that, but a little bit more action-y. Neo, The World Ends With You. The World Ends With You was such a... It was... Where did we meet before? Just like this. I know you smile, your voice, just like that. It was like that. So getting a sequel after all these years, pretty great in my book. Shin Megami Tensei 5? I'm pretty sure this game doesn't exist, but, you know, Nintendo says it's coming out this year, so whatever. Digimon Survive? This game was delayed a bunch. The Digimon Tactics game? That teaser trailer they showed was intense, to say the least. I still don't know what to think about Ghostwire Tokyo, and usually the games that I don't know what to think about turn out to be my favorites. And I'm sure there's so much more. I'm absolutely certain that some of my favorite games in 2021 will be surprise releases or stuff that just came out of nowhere. Little indies that I've never heard of. Stuff like that. But yeah, so that's me for the year. Here's hoping the best for everyone in 2021.